Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to hang out with me a little bit and watch the video. Always grateful for that. Got a good video for you guys today. We're going to be talking about rod actions as far as the type of rod actions that you need, and specifically what I want to do in this video is that I've got 3 different rods here that I'm going to show you, and pretty much, or as far as bait casting rods, and pretty much every technique in bass fishing you can fish with one of these 3 rods. Thing about rods, guys, it's intimidating. There's so many different rods and rod actions out there that a lot of times it can be overwhelming. It's like people say, well, do I need this rod or that rod or this rod or that rod? But I want to try to simplify it today and keep it where you don't break your budget buying rods, and give you guys some good options here where you can get by with just 3 fishing rods. Also, guys, before we get started, you may have heard me talk about it. I'm just trying to remind everybody that we started up our lake map breakdowns with Fish the Moment once again. You know, we discontinued them for a couple years to do some modifications on them. They're back up on the fishthemoment.com website now. And these are map breakdowns that I build for Fish the Moment, Johnny Schultz's YouTube channel and website, and have worked for years putting these things together. We got lakes that I broke down all over the country. We got them for every season of the year. And what they do is they give you 40 GPS waypoints with each map. You can download them straight to your electronic unit, tips and advice on how to fish every waypoint. And the cool thing about it is once you have a sample of each one of these waypoints, you can duplicate them in other areas yourself. So it's a good resource to learn more about your favorite lake, or if you go into a lake you've never been before, this is a great tool to have to get you some good spots right off the bat. I'll put the Fish the Moment lake map breakdown link in the description of this video if you want to check it out. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, one of the things I want to talk about with rods here before, now we always get in, every time that I do a rod video, I always get the critics come out as far as not being, you know, exactly precise on what the descriptions are. Sort of like, you know, you talk, sometimes I'll do a video or something and I'll mispronounce a word. There's always some English professor will say, Randy, that's not how you pronounce it. It's sort of the same when I do rods. It's like when I talk about rod actions, people say, Randy, that's not tip, that's taper, that's action, that's power. It's confusing. There's so many different ways you can identify, you know, what a rod does. I simplify it, guys. And here's how I simplify it. I classify a rod as like a medium action, medium heavy, medium light, that type of stuff, with either a fast taper or a slow taper. So we'll get into that a little bit. So here's what I'm talking about with it. You know, when you're talking about a rod, the taper, or as far as the flex on it, it has to do with how far down the rod bends. Sometimes on a fast taper, that means the rod only flexes at the tip a little bit, but more on a slower taper, the entire rod will flex farther down. So that's one way to identify it. But don't get caught up in all the labels and everything that, you know, people use to try to identify rods. Let's keep it a little bit more simple here. So what I've done here, guys, is I've got 3 rods that I picked out that pretty much every bass fishing technique you can use with one of these 3 rods. And I want to go through each rod and sort of go over what techniques that you can get. And you guys know that I work with megabass, so I'm going to be talking about megabass rods. But if you have a rod manufacturer that you prefer, you can use the same information that I'm giving you as far as the actions, because every rod manufacturer are going to have rod actions similar to what we're talking about. So anyway, let's get into the 3 different ones that you need. Now there's the first one I want to talk about, guys, is what I consider some type of a medium action rod. Now this right here is the Megabass Orochi Jerkbait Special. It's a 6-foot 11-inch rod. Also, guys, I'll link all of my favorite rods I suggest in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. If you guys would like to use that link, it's a good way to help the channel out. But the first rod, medium action, under 7-foot rod. Now here's a critical element to this rod I'm talking about here. You've got to have one rod under 7 feet. Every other rod that I use with my bait cast lineup is over 7 feet, but you do need a rod under 7 feet for several different techniques. Now, this particular one here, the 6'11" model, I consider this a medium action. It's got a pretty parabolic bend on it. You know, it's got a medium tip on it, gradually bends down. It's a good medium action rod, 6 feet 11 inches. Now there's 2 different type of lure categories you fish with a rod like this. Number 1 You want to have the shorter rod to have lures that when you need to put a lot of action, like wrist action. So say for example, if you're walking a Zara spook, you need to have a shorter rod that allows you to make that manipulation with your wrist, or even a jerk bait for you guys that fish a jerk bait with a bait caster, which I never do, but the same thing. Jerk bait or walking a topwater or any type of a topwater, it's a lot easier to do with a rod under 7 feet. If you use a rod over 7 feet and you try to manipulate like that, it's too heavy. It feels a little bit lethargic, and you can't get that quick snap out of it. A shorter rod will allow you to get a quicker snap, which gets better action on the lure, which obviously will catch you more fish. The second thing with that, beyond the length of it, is the tip flex on it on a medium. Now, you want this softer tip. I consider this like a medium soft tip on this particular action. And you want this for your crankbait fishing, not necessarily your super big crankbaits, but most of your crankbaits, which would be like a lipless crankbait, a wiggle wart, a square bill crankbait, just some type of a medium diving crankbait. This softer tip is necessary for that type of crankbait fishing, simply because it allows you for better casting, allows you for better lure manipulation, and then when the fish hits that bait, your tip will flex a little bit, which allows the bait to go a little bit deeper in the fish's mouth. If you have a super stiff tip, a lot of times you'll lose fish on those crankbaits because when they inhale that, it's too stiff for it to actually get sucked back into their gills a little bit. So that medium action is really critical with that. So that's one aspect with the rod under 7 feet. Now the next rod with that is one slightly over 7 feet. This is the Megabass Perfect Pitch. It's a 7-foot 2-inch rod, and I consider this a medium heavy. It's got a lot stiffer, midsection. It's got a lot stiffer tip on it here. So the 7.2 is going to be a more powerful rod, and this is going to be a very versatile rod. There's a lot of things you can do with the 7.2 medium heavy. First of all, if you like to do a lot of light pitching and flipping, like pitching and flipping with baits under 3/8 of an ounce, a medium heavy 7.2 is a really good choice for that. Your spinnerbait fishing, like fishing your larger spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, even big crankbaits, like a big deep diving crankbait that really pulls hard, is going to be good with this rod. Swim baits are going to be good. Swim baits up to 6 inches you can throw on it. There's a lot of different lures, football head jigs, swing head jigs, basically lures that you need to have a little bit more power in. So if you're using a lure that you have to move, as far as when that fish hits it, you have to move that lure through the fish's mouth, which requires a little bit more power because the lure is bigger and it's got bigger hooks on it. This is when you want a little bit stiffer rod, a little bit more power to your rod with that. So the 7.2 medium heavy is one model that you definitely need to get. And the final one, guys, is a good flipping stick. A flipping stick is a very, very versatile tool. A lot of people think that it's just for pitching and flipping. It's not. This is the Megabass Oroshi Alcleys, 7 foot 11 inches long. I consider it I don't consider it like a heavy action. I consider it like it's like in between a medium heavy and a heavy. It's not extra heavy, it's not heavy, it's not medium. Sort of that fine line between there. It's going to have a stiff tip on it. It's not going to bend much in the midsection. It's going to be long. So obviously, meeting up to its name, you're pitching and flipping. It's going to cover all that, on any type of lure weight. Flipping stick is also a key piece of equipment to throw like an Alabama rig on. It's a key rod to throw, again, a big diving, super deep diving crankbait that pulls a lot. Your glide baits, your larger swim baits are going to be good with it. And one of my favorite lures to fish with a flipping stick is like a big, 3/4 to 1 ounce spinnerbait. Any lure that you require maximum power, larger lures, bigger hooks, lures that you have to cast farther out there, and when you set the hook, you need to take up the slack from a distance. Flipping stick will cover all that. So pretty much, guys, if you don't want to spend a bunch of money and you don't want to get overwhelmed, every technique that you have, you can fish with one of those 3 rods. Some type of a medium action rod under 7 foot, then another one medium heavy, slightly over 7 feet, and then a flipping stick slightly under 8 feet. Those, I don't know of any techniques on Baitcaster that you can't fish with this. Now it may not be perfect. There may be a more specialty rod specifically for a certain technique, but then again, you're talking about getting caught up spending thousands of dollars in rods. And if I had to go fishing and say, Randy, you know, you can only have 3 bait casting rods the rest of your life, those are the 3 I would pick right there. But again, guys, I'll link all the stuff in my description, my Tackle Warehouse link. You guys get you some good deals there. It's a good way to help the channel. And we'll talk to you guys next day or tomorrow. See y'all.